Ladies and gentlemen, we got big news on our hands today. Not the best news in the world, but at the same time, we can take some positives out of it. AFC Wimbledon has given the axe, or actually rather, Joe Pigott has given the axe to AFC Wimbledon. He will not be signing with AFC Wimbledon next season, unfortunately. Which is a minor shock. It's not a huge shock because, AFC Wimbledon have had a bit of history with not being able to provide the monetary value to some of their star players. Like, for example, Lyle Taylor a few years back. He ended up going to Charlton because, he was too big of a player, too big of a name, and we weren't able to provide a sufficient enough of monetary value in his contract. So he went over to Charlton. That being said, Joe Pigott is most likely slated to go to Charlton as well with, the likes of Lyle Taylor and Deji Oshilaja, a couple of players that we have had in our history. So that being said, what is the next best thing for us going forward? I'm going to make another video after this talking about, other players we could sign with the departures of players like Shane McLaughlin and Callum Riley, as well as, Ryan Longman, Jaakko Oksanen, and, George Dobson. I'm actually going to be making another video after this one talking about who else we could sign in the midfield department to accommodate for players such as Callum Riley and Shane McLaughlin leaving, as well as players from loan like Ryan Longman, George Dobson, them going back to their respective clubs, Jaakko Oksanen as well, going back to their respective clubs. But for now, we're going to focus on the main news catalyst here, and that is going to be Joe Pigott not re-signing. So what can we do to nullify the damage of losing such a key player such as Joe Pigott? Zach Clough. I think Zach Clough, a player that was acquired by Wigan Athletic earlier this year, he was a free transfer from Nottingham Forest, I do think he's a fantastic player. Did struggle a little bit when he was at Wigan, but I do think his dynamic style of play, very fast, and also decent finishing, especially from outside the box, I do think it'll provide. When he was at Nottingham Forest, and Joe Pigott's was about 2,100 a week, so that's going to be an issue. We could also get, who's the main striker? I forgot his name. The main striker for Charlton. Chuka Saneke. We could go for him as well, but he's more of a target man individual. And like I said, in order to diversify our attack, I feel like we need someone very quick, very dynamic. There is one player, though, that everyone in particular seems to be talking about. And I save this for last because this is probably the one that everyone is most excited about. The potential prospect of this particular player playing for this team seems to excite everyone more than any of the other players I mentioned or any other player out there. Isaac Oleofe. That's his shortened name because his name is way too long to pronounce. Isaac Oleofe, a player that was a very key piece for National League side Sutton United to get promoted to League 2. And I saw a little bit of film, and I gotta say I'm pretty impressed. He seems to have a pretty good first touch, and he takes care of the ball whenever he's on it. He has decent pace. He's not someone who's gonna, have blinding speed like I mentioned with Umar Niasse. He on the ball, he's very quick, takes, a couple touches, and boom, he slots it in. There was one goal in particular where he made this little turn, and he was able to take two quick touches, get around his defender, and blast it into the near post. Also, he's decent in the air. Overall, solid player, and I'm actually really excited to see what he could do for AFC Wimbledon in case we do pick him up. That being said, I don't have too much experience with looking at the off-season for football, for transfers, for signings and whatnot. I actually don't really pay that much attention to the off-season in general with any sport that I follow. So this is kind of I'm kind of dipping my toes a little bit in focusing very heavily on the off-season slash preseason, whatever the case may be. So drop a comment down below of who you think could be a good signing for AFC Wimbledon in the striking department. And stay tuned for tomorrow, as I'll be coming out with a video on who we could potentially sign in the midfield category. So thank you guys for watching, and peace.